Indiana gets the big win over Purdue, 4 wins in their last 5 matchups over Purdue. And Darren DeVries, first year as head coach of Indiana, he was getting some criticism. They went through that 4-game skid where they had 4 straight losses. Now, I think the thing people need to remember, those are 4 good teams in the Big Ten, 3 really good teams, 3 contenders in the Big Ten. You had home against Nebraska, and you did lose at home against Iowa. I think I would have a little bit more reservation or a little bit more understanding there if it was on the road, but you lose on the road to Michigan State, on the road to Michigan, and those games didn't look super competitive, but you get the win over Rutgers, you blow them out, you get the win over Purdue now. They had 0 returning players for returning points from last season. Excuse me. And now they're 14-7, 5-5 in the Big Ten, kind of middle of the pack. They're 90th, 93rd nationally, in offense, and kind of some inconsistent results. But if this team can really put it together like we saw against Purdue, then then you're going to see some good basketball going forward, and really kind of revitalizing Bloomington, who just saw a national championship for the football team. I don't think people are necessarily expecting the national championship out of Darren DeVries in this first year. Maybe some people are. I can't imagine they are. But and I know Indiana fans will tell me that's not the expectation. But Indiana's kind of been through it a little bit. They dropped close or winnable games against strong opponents, road losses to UCLA. Like I said, Michigan State, they lost to Illinois. That was a tough 4-game stretch there where they lost 4 in a row. They've had issues kind of integrating the roster. They've had guys that didn't start the season that are starting to come in now. And then but this Purdue victory really could catapult them as their first quad 1 victory of the season. You see the Purdue win for them over number 12 Purdue, which is 72-67, first quad 1 win. It added to Purdue's losing streak, which you love to see there. And then you got guys like Lamar Wilkerson, who was still able to put up 19 points after not hitting, not being super efficient, hitting threes from the 3-point line. And then Connor Enright was clutch in this game as well. He made some clutch plays as well. And, not everybody's been super fond of Connor Enright this season, but in that game, he was able to come up with some really clutch plays and make some things happen. So this really boosts the overall attitude, the morale for the teams. I think Darren DeVries, it really kind of boosts his confidence as a coach as well to get that win over Matt Painter. But some of the key issues that we've seen this season that I think they're starting to correct now are some of those roster turnover effects, the chemistry problems. You're starting to see a team that is more cohesive, especially in that Purdue game. They were much more cohesive. They've had turnover issues this season, but again, that chemistry, that cohesion is starting to help, get rid of that a little bit. The DeVries kind of faster pace SEC style of system does make it a little bit more difficult for a team who doesn't have as much chemistry. So I really do feel like as Indiana goes on throughout the year, this is what you're starting to see. This game against Purdue, I'm not saying that they're going to play like this every single week. I'd love it if they did, but I do think that this is kind of the start of seeing that chemistry kind of coincide and all come together. So some of the poor shooting they had can contribute to that as well, but they fixed that by just getting there with really strong defense, kind of some bend but don't break mentality. They held Purdue to only 67 points, despite Purdue having a late rally in that one. And then the offensive improvements as well. When they're shooting their threes lights out, I don't know if there's very many teams in the country that can beat them when they're shooting their best, but it really comes down to the ball movement and reducing the turnovers. You saw excellent ball movement in that Purdue game. You saw guys really getting used to them being around, veterans stepping up like Wilkerson and Enright, and also getting down low and being more physical. That's a Purdue. I was talking about it when we were talking about Purdue. That's a Purdue front court that has been better than Indiana. Obviously, Oscar Clough, TKR, they've been excellent. But you saw a more physical front court out of Indiana in this game with Reed Bailey and Tucker DeVries down there. They were being more physical, getting more rebounds, and doing a great job down there. But the in-game adjustments from DeVries are key as well, right? That kind of stuff really highlights this team and where they can be. If you're going to continue to get this kind of defense out of Connor Enright against whatever point guard he sees or anything like that, you're going to see a whole lot more success for this team as the season goes on. Now, are we expecting him to shut down a player of Braden Smith's caliber every single night? No, but you do need a guy out there who you can rely on defensively. And Connor Enright, if he is really coming into that and can continue to give that great effort, whenever you see Braden Smith get close to the amount of turnovers that he gets assists, I believe he had 0 assists in the first half of that game as well. That's when you really see Purdue start to struggle the most, because if they are not getting their facilitator going through the offense and getting the ball to their guys, that's really when you see Purdue see the worst of their team out there. And that was caused by Indiana. That was caused by Connor Enright. I saw some people saying, well, off game for Braden Smith, it is what it is. Guys, let's give Indiana credit here. Give Indiana the credit. They did a fantastic job in this game. 40 minutes of Connor Enright chasing around Braden Smith. I don't know if he'll ever guard anybody that difficult for that long ever again in his career. I mean, he did a fantastic job. And Nick Dorn as well. I remember when they signed Nick Dorn, I did a video on the channel talking about how impressive it was and how good of a thing it was for this Indiana team to get him. And then he's now started his second straight game coming back and being able to do that, putting up 18 points, getting hot from three. And that's something that we've seen from Purdue this season. They have issues with, they kind of get down, and that can really demoralize your opponent when you're hitting threes like that, especially when they're on the road. So as Assembly Hall, continue to make that happen. And I think that they can win the rest of their games at Assembly Hall the rest of the season. They have Wisconsin, Northwestern, Oregon there. Minnesota is coming there as well. Really the only game that I would say they're probably not going to be favored in at home is that Michigan State game, where Michigan State, the odds will be on their side in that one, but we've seen Michigan State struggle this season as well. And even though they've gotten some games where they win by double digits, it doesn't mean that they weren't struggling at some point during those games too. So I definitely think Michigan State is beatable for Indiana. You just saw them beat Purdue, so Michigan State is definitely beatable. And then some of these road games are good road games to be able to win too. UCLA, they've been a little inconsistent this season. You catch them on the right night, that's a game they can certainly win. USC, they've not been the most disciplined team, tall, athletic team, but they've not been the most disciplined this season. You can definitely get that one. Ohio State, that's hardly even a home court advantage. That home court absolutely is awful and atrocious and embarrassing for them. So, going there, it's like, all right, you've won at Ohio State plenty over the years. Really, the only two games you have left that are of maximum difficulty to keep you from winning out the rest of the season is the away game against Illinois and the away game against Purdue. This team has odds of minus 290 on FanDuel to make it to the tournament. I'd even put it higher at this point, because probably the floor record for this team that I see at the end is 18 and 13. I think they can do even better than that. To me, that's the floor, 18 and 13. The ceiling for this team is even higher. I think they can get to 22, dare I say 23 wins on the season. You just beat Purdue at home. Can you go into Mackey and get that win? Illinois just went into Mackey and got the win. I'm not saying Indiana's Illinois, but I am saying that's something that can definitely happen, and that's something that Indiana fans can definitely think about. Now, am I saying that's the expectation and Darren DeVries needs to be fired if it doesn't happen? No, of course not, but focus on winning those home games, split the road games, and you're going to find yourself right there at 20 wins to do that. If you say you beat Ohio State and USC on the road and you win 4 out of your 5 final games there, you're at 20 wins right there. Win 4 out of your 5 final home games and get Ohio State and USC on the road, and you're fine. You can get that for sure. Now, Ohio State, they're not easy out. Ohio State's pretty good this season. They just don't have much of a home court advantage. So this is kind of middle of the pack Big Ten team, but I could definitely see this team getting themselves up there in the top 6, top 7, and getting themselves a good seed in the tournament. Right now, projected kind of around, from what I'm seeing certain places around a 10 seed and stuff like that. I think they can just keep growing from there. I think this is a team that can just keep growing from there, get up to a 9, get up to an 8 seed, something like that. Going to be even more favorable for them. And I really like this Indiana team's chances moving forward. If they continue to play like they did against Purdue, look, I'm not saying it's, a given or anything, but win the games you're supposed to win, steal a couple of those road games against a couple teams that are a little bit more vulnerable to that. And this Indiana team can make some big noise this season.